What is going on YouTube, and welcome back to my channel JoJo Speaks. I am so excited to start talking about Survivor. We are on season 48. This is episode 9. For those of you guys who do not know, I am a huge fan of Survivor. Survivor is probably my favorite show to watch on television. It's one of the most frustrating shows to watch at the same time. However, it is extremely entertaining for me to view and enjoy. It's lovely. I love watching the show. The reason why it's so frustrating though is because a lot of times the people who deserve to stay are the first ones, are the easiest to get out because they're big threats, and a lot of times people want to get out the big threats, which is the point of the game. You don't want someone who would probably win over you to end up winning the entire thing. So I understand the name of the game. However, I feel as though it's so entertaining for me, mainly because of the challenges. I just love the immunity challenges and the reward challenges. It's always entertaining for me to see people, go through the obstacles and all that good stuff. So we're getting into, once again, this is season 48, and we are on episode 9. So in the previous episode, we saw a little bit of a breakdown between the main alliance, which consisted of Joe, David, Mary, Eva, Kyle, and Shaheen. And they really wanted to get Camilla out. They really wanted to get her out, and Kyle was not here for that because he has a secret alliance with her that no one else on the island knows about, and so thankfully Kyle was able to, I guess, convince everyone to vote for Christy, and so Christy ended up going home last time. However, David and Mary will not let go of this whole Kyle and Camilla thing, and they are right. Yes, Kyle and Camilla are working very closely together. And so David and Mary were right in their feelings concerning Kyle and Camilla. And they were on the right track. However, for those of you guys who watch Survivor, you all know that when people start getting paranoid, the other tribe mates do not like that. The other tribe mates don't like when there's a lot of chaos going around the camp. And David and Mary, David especially, was causing a lot of chaos. And I didn't really pay attention to David before the merge. And so I feel like once he got himself into an alliance that was pretty much running things, I feel like his ego was showing up a little bit, and I think he felt like he could run things a little bit, and also his paranoia really got the best of him. And I was so glad that Shaheen did not get eliminated. I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago when he was like one of the main people that they wanted to get out. And I feel as though it was Kyle who was able to keep him safe. And so I'm so glad that Kyle and Shaheen have apparently come together and started to trust one another. And I love that. This episode was probably my favorite episode of the entire season so far, because we ain't even gonna talk about Say, or we ain't gonna talk about Cedric, or let's not even get into that, Cuddy, because I'm so glad that Say is not here anymore, because I felt like she was the best player to ever play Survivor, and I really don't appreciate people who think that they are better than others just for the simple fact that they are who they are. So I'm so glad that she's not there anymore. Cedric, he wasn't a Survivor player. I feel like, the way that Cedric played, it seemed like he'd never seen Survivor before. And I love for Survivor fans to be on the show because they typically know the right way to move, and they typically know the right way to play a game. So this entire time, David and Mary have this campaign against Kyle, and Camilla, and it was very interesting to see the way that David was trying to convince Joe and trying to convince Eva, that Kyle and Camilla have something going on, and we've got to do something about this. And I love the way that Kyle did not blow up in David's face the way that he could have. I love the fact that Kyle kept his composure, and played it safe and played it smartly. And he waited for someone else to bring up the idea of getting David out. I love the fact that it was Mitch. I love Mitch being on the show. I'm not expecting too much out of him necessarily as far as the whole social part of the game is concerned. Of course, everyone does love Mitch on the island. Mitch is pretty popular. However, in the last couple of episodes, we really haven't seen Mitch having any conversations with anyone else on the tribe. So I've always felt like Kyle could grab up Mitch. He can grab up Star. I love seeing Star on the show. However, she's doing nothing on the show. And nothing really grinds my gears more than seeing someone on Survivor just sitting there like a bump on a log. Like I cannot stand seeing that. But I do understand that Star may not be so much of a social person. I don't see myself as necessarily that much of a social person. However, when you are playing Survivor, the social part of the game is one of the most important parts of the game, because if you have no social interactions or no social connections with anyone on the tribe and who will eventually be on the jury, then why would they give you the $1 million at the end of the day? So I don't know exactly how long Star is going to be there. I have a feeling that Mitch or Star will end up in the final three. And I say that because a lot of times, especially with the last couple of seasons, Heidi comes to mind in season 44 when Yam Yam won. Romeo comes to mind the season that Mary Ann won. A lot of times these stragglers, these people who you really don't see on the show get that much camera time, sneak their way in, and they sneak their way in because they're not seen as a threat. They feel like, if I get to the final three with them, I have a better chance of winning because no one's going to throw a vote their way. So that's another thing that kind of grinds my gears about watching Survivor, is that people who I feel don't deserve to make it to the end always end up going to the end. So it would not surprise me if Mitch or Star end up making it to the end, and I wouldn't be too upset about that because I like both of them. I really do, and this is one of the rare seasons where I like a lot of people on the cast. Because a lot of times people just annoy me very easily. But I love the fact that Joe ended up winning the immunity idol. Joe was struggling just a little bit when it was down to him and David. I really expected for David to win this immunity. David is excellent at immunity challenges. He's already won an immunity previously with the challenge where they were holding up a bucket of I think it was 10 or 25% of their weight. So that was the one thing that I felt like could keep David in the game. However, when Joe picked Mitch, he picked Shaheem, and he also picked David. I'm sorry, not David, but Eva to go on the reward with him. I love the fact that Mitch brought up the idea of David being the one that they take out. And then Shaheem kind of, spoke up and said, I think that's a good idea. Now, I love Joe. I really do. I love the fact that he has a soft heart for Eva. I love the fact that he wants to play. He wants to play an honest game. I love the fact that he doesn't want to, throw anyone under the bus. I think Joe loves everyone on the tribe. Eva, of course, the most. But I really appreciate the way Joe is approaching the game. I really do love that. I also have to say that I liked Mary when she was kind of going up against Say in their while they were still in three tribes. I was really really rooting for Mary initially. However, when I saw her team up with David and saw her just running around the camp and just causing all this chaos with David, although it was mostly David doing the majority of that stuff, I started not to see Mary in such a good light. But hopefully, now that David is gone, Mary can kind of have her own identity in the game, and maybe team up with someone else. I don't know if Kyle would be open to, working with her, but my only fear now is that, for those of you guys who don't know, I don't know why you'd be watching this if you didn't know, but David is the one that ended up going home. And I love the way that they set up the tribal council, the time between the immunity challenge and the time of them going to tribal council when they try to decide who's going to go home. The way that they set it up, David and Mitch were the only names that were being brought up for possibly going home. And I knew that David was going home. And I knew this because I did not see David going to Kyle or going to Shaheem telling them, or Camilla for that matter, telling them that Mitch is the one who needs to go home. I didn't see those conversations. And I'm sure if those conversations happened, we would have been able to see that. And we did not see that whatsoever. And the way that they set that up, I thought it was obvious that David was going to go home. Now, I sort of kind of felt a little bit sorry for David. However, David put the nail in his own coffin. Once again, when you are paranoid, when you are running around the camp causing chaos, the way the Say was doing earlier in the season, is going to is going to make people want to get you out. And that's exactly what happened. It's not that David was. I don't want to say that he was really trying to run things, but the way that he was moving made it seem as though he was trying to run things. And I don't think that Kyle would have felt comfortable with that. Now, I'm Kyle is the contestant that I'm rooting the most for. I really want Kyle to win. I would love for Kyle to win. He is my number one at this point. I feel like my second would be Joe. I would not mind it if Joe won either. I think he's a great man. I think he has a beautiful heart, beautiful soul. I just am afraid of what is going to happen if Kyle has to turn his back on Joe. And if he doesn't have to do that and Kyle and Joe make it to the end, I would fully expect for Joe to end up winning the entire game. I don't think that Kyle can beat Joe in a final three. And I say that because I feel like and I don't want to use the word sympathy vote, but I think Joe is more likable in a way, because of his heart and because of the way that he presents himself to the other tribe mates. I just have a feeling that if Joe and Kyle are both in the make it to the end, then Joe will win over Kyle. But I feel as though if Kyle makes it to the end with any other combination of people, I think Kyle will be our winner of season 48. What are your thoughts on this season so far? Who are your favorites? Who are your least favorites? Let me know down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Press that big red subscribe button. It is free and easy to do. It takes less than a second to mash that thing, so go ahead and mash it. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out on my channel. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this season of Survivor. Once again, who are your favorites? Who are your least favorites? Let me know down in the comments. Be sure to press the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Last but not least, be sure to share JoJo Speaks with all your family, friends, and loved ones. Let everybody know JoJo Speaks is out here in these YouTube streets. Check me out on the next video. Peace out, you guys.